I just responded. We fought over the bat, and when it came down to it, I choked him out.
Okay. So my question to you is, why did you go through all that work to hide the body instead of calling the authorities?
Sir, it was a misjudgment on my part. I didn't know the authorities. I was new in the area, and was just.
I mean, our investigation is very clear. We have witnesses that ID'd you in Iowa.
I've been, it's a dark time in my life, man.
And how long did you stay with him?
I stayed with Mark about a month.
About a month? I mean, something must have happened between you and Mark at that time.
Mark was crazy. He was down on everything. So what is this all
I think you know, John.
John,
You know why we're here.
You know why we're here.
What?
I'm sorry to tell you, but Mark is dead. Okay? And you were the last person to see him alive.
This is the first time investigators mentioned that Mark is dead. It's been 26 and a half minutes, and they've never said this to him. And Green's reaction is nothing. He doesn't ask what happens. He doesn't show any grief. He just sits there.
We are about to watch the parole hearing of a man whose crime was so intriguing and so captivating that it made it onto the popular show Anatomy of Murder, the podcast. And because of this, I was able to obtain tremendous amount of information. I'll leave a link to the podcast in the link below. But in a nutshell, this is what happened. This is, I think, just an abomination of the justice system. In 2009, the victim went missing. Eventually, the state of Iowa declared him dead in 2011 when they could not find him, even though his car, his wallet, all the information was still in the home. When the home was sold November 5th of 2012, they found his body in the basement, not well hidden, covered in some cat litter. At that point, they realized that they had a homicide on their hands, and they went out and actually through a Pomeranian and we can get into that later, was able to find the murderer who is sitting in front of us now. Now, this murderer was offered a 10-year plea deal, which he turned down. A jury found him guilty of second-degree murder, sentenced him to 50 years in prison, and this was in 2015 when that sentencing was handed down. So you might be asking yourself, how is he up for parole? Well, in short, he filed an appeal, and somehow he won the appeal. The appeal that he won was his attorney didn't explain to him that the 10-year deal he was offered, he should take. They have no documentation because it's client-attorney privilege. There's no recordings of that conversation. But for whatever reason, they said, yeah, okay, we believe you. I've never heard of anything like this. Probably neither have you. And then the DA went on record and said, you know what? I actually never felt that he should have gotten a 50-year sentence. I actually felt that this was a self-defense plea. I don't know why I charged him with first-degree homicide, which is what they did. You can't make this up, but that's what he says. I'll go through the information. So because of that, they decided not to retry the case, but to, again, offer him a deal. And that's why he's up for parole. And as we know, the Iowa Parole Board is completely incompetent. They are not going to ask any meaningful questions. As a matter of fact, his plan is to move in with a friend. The same exact identical situation that landed him here in the first place, living with a friend who he then murdered. You can't make it up. Again, I'll include the links in the description if you want to listen to the podcast before you hear this parole hearing, because I think listening to it, it will only just drive you more insane.
Is there anything new from the evaluation that you submitted?
No, there should be nothing to add to that currently.
Okay, I appreciate that. And what's the recommendation?
The recommendation is that We believe that he is qualified for release. He's met his, he's done what he needs to do and he's ready to go.
Okay, so he's going to
Parole for
Parole.
a friend
parole to a friend's house. Yeah.
in Florida.
Correct.
Very good, very good. Colleague, do you have any questions before we get started?
I don't.
Okay, you can go ahead and bring the offender in.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, and they're ready to go. Just have a seat right there.
Hello, sir, and good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm John Green. My number is 622-3528.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Green. My name is Jesse Rincon. Today, my colleagues are Renee Schulte and James Moses will be conducting your interview today. I'm going to just explain the process, okay?
All right.
All right, so this interview is that's conducted today is considered being a public forum, meaning that the public and the media can listen in, but they cannot participate. We could possibly discuss confidential information such as your mental health, substance abuse, and medical history. Do you understand this, and are you willing to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So how this works is I'll start off by asking you to describe your crime in detail, what was going on in your life at that time, what brought you to prison. After that, my colleagues and myself might have a few questions for you to answer. After we've completed our questioning, I'll ask you if you have anything for the board that you prepared or like us to know at that time, so you'll have the floor at that time. Then we'll go into what's called deliberation, meaning that we're going to make a decision. Once we've made a decision, I'll come back to you and explain the decision to you the best I can, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go back to the time of the crime. What was going on in your life? What happened? If you could please describe that to me, sir.
I was living with Mark Koster in Iowa, and my wife down in Florida and I, we had separated, and I had been invited by Mark to Iowa here. Mark and I had been friends for over 20 years, and he moved up to Iowa maybe 7 years before that time, thereabout, and he told me about it over the years. So I came up, was just sort of experimenting with the area, learning a little bit about Iowa, spending time with Mark. One day, early June, there was an altercation with Mark and I. We got in it. Sorry?
I didn't say anything.
We got in a fight that went too far, and I took his life, and sort of hid the evidence and didn't report it to the police.
So at that time, were you under the influence of anything?
Was I what?
Were you under the influence at that time?
No, sir. No, sir.
And at the time of the incident, was it just an altercation, or was it that serious that you felt threatened, or what was going on?
Yes, sir. I felt threatened. Mark hit me with the baseball bat from my per se blind side. I didn't know exactly, I just responded. We fought over the bat. And when it came down to it, I choked him out.
Okay. So my question to you is, why did you go through all that work to hide the body instead of calling the authorities?
Sir, it was a misjudgment on my part. I didn't know the authorities. I was new in the area, and was just, I'm sure you probably heard people say before they were in shock. And if I could say that I was in shock, I was in shock. And it's just the way I did it.
Okay. My next question for you is, you're paroling to a friend's house, correct?
Correct, in Florida.
Does that friend know the extent of your crime?
Yes, sir, he does.
Okay, that was one of my, and then, my last question for you right now is, tell me what you've learned from MRT.
MRT. Well, it brought back a lot of things that I have known in my past and brought more up to date. To be honest, try to be a trustworthy person, to face my problems head on and not avoid them, sir. To make goals in life and commit to those goals by my actions, to try to reunite when I get out with family and past friends. I have several grandchildren and 4 sons, and reunite with them to try to repair, the damage that a decade has done by being out of their lives. To be a better moral person, helping out. In our MRT, we had to do volunteer work, and I volunteered in the library. I volunteered in my unit cleaning and just helping out, helping others in general. There was a few guys that were maybe a couple steps or more behind me in MRT, and I volunteer, and they asked for my help, and I tried to help them with the steps that they were involved in. A few times they would come up and ask me for, we'll just say coffee or something, and I gave it to them with no, didn't want anything back in return, and that's sort of what I learned. Also, I want to commit my life to changing morally, to be a better person to our community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sir, thank you for answering the questions I did have. I'm gonna let my colleagues ask at this point. Renee, do you have any questions?
Yeah, hello, Mr. Green. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Good. Could you talk to me about what your plans are related to work or Social Security, retirement? What are you looking at if we were to move you forward today?
Moving forward, I'm 65 years old. I will be residing with my friends. I'll be signing up for Social Security to help survive on. My best friend will already be staying. He has MS and is mostly bedridden and could use various amounts of different types of help as far as transporting back and forth to doctor's visits, etc., things around the house. In that area, I have 8 grandchildren. So they range from age 1 to 17. So I like to, revisit, get acquainted with them, etc. Where I might find some part-time work and so forth, I will be up for doing that as I can.
Okay. So what do you think as far as supports are concerned, that you need to be successful?
I'm sorry, your question?
What kind of supports might you need to help you be successful?
Well, support from the board to help me with my transition as far as interstate transfer to Florida. I was born and raised in Florida. I have virtually no criminal history at all, so I should be able to be accepted down there. The board could help me by agreeing to give me parole and let me serve the rest of my sentence on parole down in Florida. My friends have pretty much, Mike and Patsy Jaroche have committed to giving me a place to stay with, with a return for me helping them out. There's a lot to do with trying to reestablish myself as far as getting a driver's license, trying to get a vehicle to get around in, those steps that I'll just have to, take care of as I can.
All right, thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
James?
Yeah, thank you. How you doing, Mr. Green?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you, sir.
Hey, doing pretty good. I was curious, you talked about trustworthy and having better morals since the incident occurred
Yes, sir.
that took place that led you there. If I was to ask you to share more of your values today that you didn't have back when you committed this crime, what would you say those values would be? Like, give me at least 3, but if there's more, then you can list more for me.
Value number 1, I would say, is problems. I'm going to have them. I need to address them immediately. Don't put them behind the to-do list, but to meet them head on. Commit to avoiding circumstances, people that aren't morally set. Learning to avoid those situations, and for people that are going in the right direction and need some help, is committed to help with them. Except that I want to be a better person and continue on with that.
And I asked that because you talk about trustworthiness. You mentioned wanting to reestablish, but be active and engage with your grandkids from 1 year of age to 17 years of age. So family, I would think, is another part of value. As my colleague mentioned, if we are to look at releasing you, and you talk about wanting to be better in the community, did I hear you say that?
Better unity?
No, better in the community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So since we're talking about a potential transitioning, what are your thoughts to community service?
I'm all for helping out in the community, sir. For years, I was a blood donor. For a while, one of my sons was in American Red Cross. And for a couple of years, we helped out there, etc. Just in general, giving really gives back to the giver as far as the accomplishment of helping out.
No, I just,
I have, I have more grandchildren than that and older ones than that as well. But of the 8 that I was mentioning, 2 of them I've never held. Half of the 8, 4 of them, I haven't really been in communication at all over the years. The other 4 I have. I've been able to phone calls and video visits and somewhat connect with them. So I've got a lot of work to do, mending, those relationships.
I'm going to concede, but those are my questions for you today. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay, Mr. Green, like I told you earlier, that if you had anything you'd like the board to know at this time before we go into deliberation, you got the floor.
Well, I understand that Mark's family might be watching. I would again like to say that I'm truly sorry for my actions, that my participation in the events that took Mark's life, my actions I'm not proud of, the after effects, and I realize I did a lot of personal damage that I own, that I shouldn't have done, and I'm truly sorry for. Mark and I, we met back in 1985. We worked together at a mobile gas station where we met. And during our years, we were roommates 3 different times in Texas area and down in Florida. He worked with me at 4 different locations, 5 different locations, I believe. One, we went fishing together. We played chess together. Mark was an astonishing chess player and beat me almost every time. I think the time or 2 that I did win, I think he actually let me win. But we were best friends. We were as close as brothers and really called each other brothers many times over the years. One special occasion that I recall, about a year after we had met, we were roommates, and Mark was a computer whiz. Without a computer, he came to me and he had found a computer, I believe it was at Radio Shack, that he wanted to buy the whole setup, and he couldn't afford it. He had about half of it. He told me, that he would teach me about computers because I didn't know anything about it if I'd go in halves with him and buy this computer. And he talked me into it. Well, he held up, he taught me about computers. We played, learned on the computers. This is before the internet days. And then years later, we stayed in touch on the internet, etc. I know Mark's family misses him. I also miss him. And I'm truly sorry for the events that took place.
Thank you. I appreciate that statement very much. So at this time, we're going to do what's called go into deliberation, meaning we're going to make a decision. So just sit back, you'll be able to listen. Once we've made that decision, I'll come back to you and explain the best I can, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, thoughts?
Yeah, so in this particular case, we've reviewed a whole lot of information. It looks like we've got an A commit who's only committed one major crime with also hiding a body, which is another major crime. And he served all of his time, has done it well, has used his time to the best of his ability, completed the training and the treatment that's available to him. He looks even like he has a place to go with a friend with a that has checked out. So I will be supporting the department's recommendation for parole to the friend in Florida. I think I would add a mental health evaluation, specifically to help support the transition. I don't see substance use here or medications. I don't think those are necessary. And then I'm on board potentially for community service, depending upon what my colleague thinks.
Thank you. Renee James?
Yes, thank you. Looking at the time that he's done, he is a commit. Tragic incident. Nevertheless, he was engaged throughout his time being present while incarcerated and has completed all that is required. I too am in agreement with my colleague, where I am in agreement with the DOC's recommendation. So I think it's PG 355 for potential interstate compact, a 20B for no early discharge, the 40A with the mental health eval. I think it's definitely the 40B I am in agreement with in terms of community service. We can discuss how many hours we think, 40, 50 hours. And also to reinforce the restitution as well with the case, and a 50A prohibition.
Yeah, the thing I'm looking at is what has he done in prison, and his minimum discharge date for his minimum time served was in 10/13 of 2018. So he's way past that minimum date. Looking back and observing what he did within the institution is feasible. It's what we asked for. So I am too going to be in agreement with this DOC recommendation to release to Florida with the codes that were presented. I'm going to come back to you, sir, Mr. Green. We are in agreement. We are going to give you this release to parole. You heard us talk about some of the codes that we're going to put on besides your standard conditions of parole. Some of those codes will be do you have any questions for us this time?
No, sir. The middle, will that be done here in Iowa, here before I'm released to Bill, or will it be done down in Florida?
That will be done in Florida.
Okay.
Okay.
My
All right.
PO here will help me with where I need to go. Okay.
Yes. Yep. So, sir, that will conclude our interview. You have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Y'all too. Appreciate it.
Good luck, Ms. Green.
And there you have it. They paroled him, and they're paroling him back to Florida where he had run away. They don't see anything wrong with that. They're paroling him to a man who's suffering from MS, who cannot defend himself. They don't see a problem with that. That's insane. Are you really going to parole a man who was living with another man when he murdered him? You're going to parole him to another man's home? A man who cannot defend himself? You can't take some extra precaution and say, you know what? I don't think that's a good residency plan for you. They're just going to take his word for it that his buddy knows he's a murderer, that the parole board's sending to live with him. You can't make this stuff up. You really cannot. And I don't believe for a second that the parole board verifies anything. And, you know, it's because they're useless. They're incompetent, in my opinion. I mean, they barely dive into any questions. Well, why did you kill him? You know, what will you do to move better on? And he says, I'm going to avoid people that aren't morally set, leading to avoid these situations and the people that are going to be in the right direction. So now he drags the person who he murdered through the mud, who, by the way, was a Marine with an honorable discharge. That's the man that he murdered. And yeah, but now it's all the guy's fault because he's not morally focused. You know, he murdered him. He hides him in the wall of the basement of his home and just disappears and acts like nothing happened for years. Then he's caught. He has, well, listen to the podcast. You can hear the whole thing. He finally confesses. He says why he does it. He says that he was hit in the head with the bat. He took the bat away and crushed his neck. The autopsy said it would have taken about 2 minutes for him to kill him. And You know, we don't even know if that's true. We don't even know if he got hit in the head with the bat first, right? They're just taking that side of the story, saying, okay, that was true. We'll just say that's true. A jury finds him guilty. He somehow wins a bizarre appeal, which is he didn't understand the plea deal he had gotten. And then the DA just says, you know what? We'll just instead of retrying you on the appeal, we'll just give you the same deal that you turned down. And then he gets out on parole. And this parole board actually has the naivety, just incompetence again to state, well, you're way above your guideline. And it's like, you're not way above your guideline. He was just resentenced 3 years ago. 2021. An unusual deal that will likely result in the early prison release of a man convicted of murdering his longtime friend was proposed by one of his prosecutors who believed the man should not spend the rest of his life in prison. Now, this prosecutor is nuts. He didn't just murder him. He hid the body and he ran away. Is there not retribution just for that? To me, the defendant dying in prison is not justice. This is the prosecutor. Can you imagine? Smith, who currently is deployed to Kosovo with the Iowa, I don't know what Smith is this. That's the other prosecutor. Yeah, that's the other prosecutor. I guess, I don't know. Oh, no, is that this prosecutor who did it? Okay, whatever. The National Guard, supported by Green's second-degree murder conviction, is set aside in favor of lesser felony charges. That deal has been criticized by an assistant state attorney general who helped prosecute Green and by the defendant's attorney who represented Green when he was found guilty in the murder in 2015 trial. He was only found guilty in 2015. And here he is out in 2024. Okay, Green has admitted that he choked his friend to death in June 2009 during an argument, but that Coster had started the fight by attacking him first with a baseball bat. And they just take that for granted. Oh, of course, that's how it happened. Green was 49 at the time and much larger than Coster, who was 58. Green concealed Coster's body. So Green was 49 and larger than Coster, who was 58. Green concealed his body. So they're also believing that he attacked him with the bat. Okay. Whatever. Body in the basement of Coster's house. What else sounds familiar? Him being bigger and stronger. Oh, then the guy who's suffering from MS, the guy's house he's going to go live in. Oh, sure, nothing can go wrong there. In the basement of Coster's house, underneath cat litter and other items that left a note to make it appear Coster left town. Carol Mann discovered the mummified body about 3 years later after he bought the house and was cleaning it. Can you imagine? I just bought a new house. I'm going to start my new life here in Iowa. Now there's a body. Can you live in that house again? I couldn't. Sac City police officers arrested Green in 2014 in Florida and charged him with first-degree murder. And listen to the podcast. It's quite interesting how they ended up catching him. Green declined a plea deal before his trial that would have made him eligible for release from prison in less than 5 years. He declined that deal. Instead, a jury convicted him of second-degree murder, which carried a minimum of 35 years in prison. Green was 55 when he was sentenced. Had Green accepted the plea offer in 2014, he likely would have been paroled 2 years ago. This was written in 2021. No, he would have been paroled more than 3 years ago. Iowa, paroles immediately. Smith wrote in his letter this week, there are some who have expressed displeasure with this arrangement because the defendant rolled the dice. I disagree that a defendant's right to justice is permanently forfeited when he elects to go to trial. Can you imagine? This is the DA taking the side of the murderer after a jury found him guilty, and he feels the need to overturn it. Good luck, Iowa. Good luck. Green challenged his conviction and last week was in effect allowed to take the deal he declined before trial. Green pleaded guilty on Friday to voluntary manslaughter, willful injury, and burglary combined. They are punishable by up to 30 years in prison, but Green is eligible for parole immediately because he is already confined to jail and prison for total more than 7 years. Ooh, 7 years. However, the plea agreement says Green, who is 61, will not apply for parole for another 3 years. And he, that's why. So he applied parole immediately, which is why it's 2024, why we're seeing it. The new deal was criticized by a prosecutor and Green's original defense attorney. How funny is this? The original defense attorney criticizes the deal. The deal was criticized by a prosecutor and Green's original defense attorney because it was based on the allegation that the original plea agreement was not adequately explained to Mr. Green, according to court records. I'm sorry for interrupting every second with my commentary, but the more I read it, the more pissed off I am. His own defense attorney, again, because this is what he was let off because of the weakest, the absolute weakest reasoning. The plea deal of 10 years was not adequately explained to me. That will never, and we know the judge, whenever a plea deal is turned down, we know that the judge states, are you aware, blah, 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 right? Don't they do that? The original deal was discussed at length during a pretrial court hearing on October 14th, in which Green reiterated his desire to go to trial. But here it is, right here. But it's unclear whether Green's original attorney urged him to take the deal because conversations between protected by law. Hey, shut up. In Friday court hearing, Green said Costa was one of my best friends, and I'm truly sorry. This was a fight between friends that turned tragic. Smith wrote his letter. This is, I believe, a genuinely remorseful defendant. I do not believe the de facto life sentence of a man the defendant's age is the right outcome here. Why do you believe him? He showed no remorse. You listen to his interrogation interview. I listened to it. There's nothing there. He sounds exactly like a cold-blooded psychopathic murderer. No emotion. He knew that the family would have been looking for him. He says nothing. He lets the body rot there. He would have continued to let the body rot without empathy or remorse. He could have sent in, if someone's feeling some empathy with a body being missing, thinking about your friend who's rotting away in a basement, all the family members who doesn't know where he is, that maybe you would have send in, you could go to some payphone somewhere and call in the report of a body in the house, completely anonymously. That's someone with a little bit of empathy. There's no empathy here. And the idea that a DA somehow, I don't know, it seems highly, it doesn't seem legitimate to go and say, you know what, I don't want, because I don't know, he wins the appeal and say, we're not going to, against the other DA and against even his own defense attorney. Call me crazy, but this is nuts. Iowa's nuts. I don't know, what else can you say? At least this part of Iowa's nuts. The parole board's certainly nuts. That's all we've seen. Anyways, you can't make it up. Thank you, Sir Richard. I'll put the links in the description. With that, I'll let you go.
I just responded. We fought over the bat. And when it came down to it, I choked him out.
Okay. So my question to you is, why did you go through all that work to hide the body instead of calling the authorities?
Sir, it was a misjudgment on my part. I didn't know the authorities. I was new in the area and was just